Shortly after meeting with Senate and House Republicans on Capitol Hill today, former President Donald Trump outlined some of the policy goals that he and the lawmakers are united behind.
We want to see borders. We want to see strong military. We want to see money not wasted all over the world. We don't want to see Russian ships right off the coast of Florida, which is what they are right now. That's unthinkable. We want to see just success for our country, and we don't have success right now.
Robert Costa joins me now. Robert, thank you for being here. Earlier today, you sat down with the Senate Republican Conference Chair, and I want to play some of that and have you talk about it on the other side.
Was there any tension between Leader McConnell and former President Trump?
No, a couple of times during this meeting, President Trump referred to Senator McConnell in a positive way.
Really? What did he
They were
say?
sitting very close to each other, talked about some things that have happened and that Mitch tried hard to get it done. We talked about some rulings coming out with the courts. It was a very, very productive and united meeting with a very strong president.
Robert, that certainly sounds like a very friendly reunion, even though these two men hadn't spoken to each other for years. What do you make of the fact that they're putting on this public display of unity for the party?
Based on my conversations, Ouija, with those who are inside the room today with former President Trump, it's a calculation. They see former President Trump as a political winner, someone who can carry the party to victory, win the White House again, and they want to be on that train politically. They don't want to be left behind. They don't think there's any political capital in being in the never-Trump camp or the anti-Trump camp. And so being there outside that room today, you really got the sense that they were all rallying around Trump. Now, Senator Mitt Romney, he made sure to get out before Trump came out for his statement. A few other senators, like Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, ducked out earlier, but most of them hung around, gave Trump a huge ovation as he walked out of the room. And this is the same group of senators who just a few years ago were hiding out during an attack on the Capitol. Many Trump supporters going to the Capitol that day. But that was a distant topic, as Senator Barrasso told me, never came up.
So how much of this is self-preservation versus, believing this is what's best for the party? Or are they linked forever?
I think it's more of an acknowledgement of the political reality. When you look at the history of the Senate, so often it was dominated by party leaders who determined the path of the respective parties. You think of President Johnson when he was Senate Majority Leader, really driving Democratic policy. Now it's the base of the party, the voters who are driving the parties. It's much more of a grassroots political movement, especially inside the GOP, whereas the Democrats have a bit more tradition, at least now, with President Biden in the White House, the Biden people driving the Democratic Party, with the traditional coalitions like the unions and other groups. The Republicans are so driven by their own voters and the grievances of their nominee.
Today, Trump also met with American business leaders at a roundtable, along with an advisor to President Biden. Can you talk about how important their support is for the candidate? These business leaders. When
you look at the primary results in the last few months, you always saw Nikki Haley's getting 15%, 20%, even though she's out of the race in a lot of these state Republican primaries. And so for Trump to meet with Governor Youngkin in the last few days, the governor of Virginia, who's friendly with many traditional Republicans, business leaders, comes out of the private equity world. He now meets with CEOs, part of the business roundtable here in Washington, D.C. It's Trump's overture to the Nikki Haley voter without ever having to say the words Nikki Haley. So he's trying to get that part of the Republican Party to come around. And when you're shaking hands with Mitch McConnell, when you're breaking bread with Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, and you're meeting with the Business Roundtable, that's pretty much a trifecta of the traditional Republican wing. And it shows that Trump, even though he doesn't like to talk about making an overture to those people, he is.
And Trump is also trying to reach out to Latino voters. And we know that during this roundtable, the Biden team launched a brand new 7-figure ad buy targeting Latinos on corporate greed. Can you talk about whether Trump is concerned about not being able to grow this base?
Populism was a story in 2016 and 2020. Once again, a story that Democrats trying to counter Trump's populist appeal by saying with someone like FTC Chair Lina Khan and Biden's corporate policy that they're taking on the corporations, they're taking on the issue of greed. So there's a real battle for the working voter and who's going to be seen as tougher against corporate America.
All right, Robert Costa, thank you as always.
Thank you.